And welcome back here to the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. We just had a big trade happen between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Oakland A's. Incredible deal for both teams. We'll get into that and the Nolan Arenado rumors going to Houston. That and more next here at the Upside. Welcome back. It is early on a Saturday morning. Hopefully you guys are having some fun out there. Major League Baseball is not waiting for anybody today. Looks like teams are trying to get their business done before Christmas, and they're already moving. The Tampa Bay Rays have found a taker for Jeffrey Springs. Multiple players involved in this deal. Sounds like the return so far for Springs and another player is going to be Joe Boyle, Jacob Waters, Will Simpson, and a compensation round A draft pick as well. We'll see what the return is as well for the A's. As Springs is one of the players that is going back that direction, but this will help the Oakland A's in their effort, or I should say the A's period now, in their effort to build out their rotation. They need some really good starting pitching here. They've done a nice job bringing in Severino, overpaying him on the market as far as I'm concerned. Springs has a big injury risk right now for them, but their performance speaks for itself. In his time with the Rays, he was a very good starter, a sub-3 ERA there, and I think he's going to do great things there for the Sacramento A's, I guess is what we'll call them. But for Tampa Bay, this is them getting off of the salary of Springs here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them try to move off of the deal for Yandy Diaz as well. So kind of keep your eyes peeled for the Rays, making a few more moves as we get closer to the start of spring training in the next couple of months. But good move here for the Oakland A's, Sacramento A's, whatever you want to call them. Good start for them this offseason. Welcome in, John. Welcome in, Vinny. What's the news on Bellinger and Bregman? Still pretty much the same. The Bellinger market might be a little bit different, though, than it was, say, 24 hours ago. We got the news this morning, anyway, that the Chicago Cubs are interested in Luis Castillo. The reason why that's important is now the Mariners have another taker for Castillo. Previously, reports had been connecting the Philadelphia Phillies to Luis Castillo from the Mariners, with Alec Boehm possibly going back the other way. Well, the Mariners aren't necessarily looking to retain money in that type of a deal. However, they do have a very strong rotation. They might be willing to make a fair, even swap, trading some pitching here for some hitting. So a trade of, say, Luis Castillo in exchange for Cody Bellinger might make a lot more sense to the Seattle Mariners as they look to upgrade their offense. Now, the Mariners, I think, are still kind of a second-place team in the Bellinger sweepstakes. I would still say the Yankees are the team out in front, as they wouldn't have to retain any salary in a Cody Bellinger deal, and there's no compunction that the Cubs wouldn't be able to acquire Luis Castillo and just take on his money and live with it at that point. So I still think the Yankees are the front runner there, but the fact that the Cubs have interest in Luis Castillo at least throws a wrench into the trade talks for Bellinger, because now they may want to insist on Bellinger as part of the return for Castillo, try to drive a market between Philadelphia and Chicago, and try to get the best value for him. Look at what the Astros just did with Kyle Tucker. The reason why they moved Kyle Tucker isn't because, hey, he's got 1 year left on his deal, we'll give him away for nothing. They traded him away because, yes, he had 1 year left on his deal, but two teams were so desperate for him, they were willing to pay double his value on the open market. That's why they moved him, is they got an incredible return for him. And so we could see something here where the Seattle Mariners try to drive up the price for Luis Castillo by having the Cubs and Phillies, compete for him. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure they're not going to give him away. I'm sure they're not looking to dismantle their rotation, but they are looking for any avenue to improve their offense. So you asked for an update on Bellinger, and my update is that another team has entered the chat a little bit more fervently for Bellinger. Yankees, though, I would still picture are the favorite. On Bregman, though, his market is still down to basically three teams with a couple of teams on the periphery. Detroit, Boston, and Toronto still seen as the favorites there, with the Phillies waiting on the periphery, as well as the Houston Astros. Astros even less so now, with the news that Arenado has become a legitimate target for the Houston Astros. Astros are targeting a third baseman right now, which would mean that Paredes would probably move over to be their first baseman next season. Wonder what that means for Christian Walker if he's not necessarily going to go there. Might actually be a good thing for the Yankees fans because then they might be the clear favorite for Christian Walker at that point. I would imagine the Mariners and Blue Jays would also have some interest as well. But it sounds like they're targeting Nolan Arenado on the trade front rather than going with Christian Walker. A little bit surprising to me anyway. But Bregman, I would still consider the three favorites to be Detroit, Boston, and Toronto. Welcome in, Vinny. Sarah, welcome in. Welcome in. Interesting on Arenado. Yes, your Cardinals are looking to move him, and we could see him being dealt, sometime in the next week or so. If Houston's starting to move a little bit more aggressively, we could see that deal come to fruition even by Monday. So we'll see what happens there. Anything new on the Mets? Not as of yet. They've been tied into a couple of different pieces here and there. Marte is probably one of the more recent rumors as far as his availability on the market. They're still looking for some starting pitching right now and relievers as well. Are the Yankees done dealing John? Absolutely not. I think the Yankees are still looking at Bellinger pretty hard right now. I imagine if they miss on Bellinger, they would enter the chat for Nolan Arenado as a third baseman. They might even be in there for Bregman. But the Yankees have to add at least 2 bats to that lineup yet, and they haven't added one. They've done a nice job building out that rotation with Max Fried, 8 years, $218 million, and then the trade for Devin Williams. But they need to address that starting lineup. Sox fan, Arenado was fine 5 years ago. He was, but he's still a good player now. He's not necessarily the Nolan Arenado of his youth with the Colorado Rockies or the early parts of his career with the Cardinals. He's still a productive piece in any lineup, and I'd imagine getting to a competitive team, a team that's competing for a championship, would really kind of rejuvenate him a little bit more lineup protection as well with some veterans in there. The Astros are going through a little bit of a turnover phase in their team right now, and anyway, they're going through a little bit of a turnover right now with their roster. And I think he's still going to be protected, but it's still a better situation than what St. Louis is going to be able to offer this year. The reason being is St. Louis is going through a youth movement. They're trying to see what pieces will be good fits for them long term and who's really not. And we'll see, who ultimately wins the sweepstakes for Arenado, but he is not going to be a member of the Cardinals come opening day. Walker is like 33. No, he's like 34, but he's an older free agent. He's still going to do well in free agency. I would expect probably a 3-year deal in free agency. I doubt he would get 4 years, but I wouldn't rule it out if the competition gets really fierce for him. But say 3 years at say 22, 23, 24 million sounds about right. Maybe even a little bit more than that for Walker. He's the best defensive first baseman on the market. Probably the best defensive first baseman in the game. But defense only counts for so much. Teams want hitting from that first base position. They want adequate defensive play there. And so, the combination there will be interesting to see what he gets on the free agent market. Sox fan, Bregman or Arenado, if you had a choice, absolutely Bregman. It's not close. If I'm the Astros, I don't think I have a chance to sign Bregman based on the history I have giving out contracts and high-value deals. I think Arenado is much more their type of player. Remember what they did to bring back Verlander? They got the Mets to basically pay over half of that deal remaining, and they were willing to ship out what was left of their prospect pool to really do so. And, I think we could see another situation here where they do the same thing. Bregman, I don't think they're going to go to 7-8 years for him. They just don't do that. They go to 5 years, maybe 6 at most, but they don't go to that length of deal. They don't pay at the top of the market for their guys, no matter how good they are. I would argue Garrett Cole is more important to that team. They let him walk. They let Carlos Correa go to another team, even though he was more important. They let him go. George Springer was a lesser extent, and now they've traded Kyle Tucker. I don't think they have any compunction about losing, key cogs off their roster as long as they're able to replace them. And Arenado would be a very good replacement for Bregman. Not necessarily at the level of a Bregman, but still gives them really good quality defensive play and offensive production at third base. Maybe not at Bregman's level, but he's still going to be able to provide it at a very similar rate. So, I think that's an avenue the Astros probably will end up going down, or at least bringing in another option like Christian Walker at first base, somebody that's going to cost less than Alex Bregman. Welcome in, Lucas. I have a feeling A's will sell high on Brent Rooker this year. I really don't. I think they're trying to extend him right now. That's why they're spending money in that rotation. Now with Severino and the trade here for Jeffrey Springs, I don't think they're going to offload Brent Rooker. I think they're going to try to make a go of it over the next couple of years, to keep that fan base interested and to generate interest in that Vegas market. You don't want to walk in there, as the doormat of the league and say, here we are, here's your 40-win A's team. They don't want to do any of that. So we'll see what they do here. But I don't think it's going to be selling Brent Rooker. I think the time for that would have been at the deadline this year. But they just basically put their foot in the ground and said, nope, we've decided our offense is working. We need to address our pitching staff, and we'll go forward from there. They may sell some other pieces off that roster in order to improve their team from a pitching staff standpoint. Maybe a Mason Miller gets moved if they get the right deal in return. But that's something I could see it happening. But, we'll see what happens with the A's. But I think Brent Rooker being traded is not in the cards right now. Welcome in, Mike Rocky. I think this is the first time I've seen you comment. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys want to say hi in the chat, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Really does help us out. Got about 50 of you guys with us already here on a Sunday morning. If you want to subscribe and join our chat here, really does help us out. Yanks got a lot of work to do. They do. They have to add a couple of hitters to that lineup. I'd imagine one of them would have to be a first base, third baseman type. Another would be an outfielder. One of them, I believe, is going to have to be a left-handed hitter. So we'll see which direction they do go. But they've done a nice job bringing in Fried and Williams, but they've got more to do. Let's see here. Sox fan, Boston and New York have a better... Boston or New York have a better pen. I would say... Right now, I would lean Boston, but by a hair. I think the Yankees have the better piece at the back end of that bullpen, but I like the overall... composition of the bullpen for the Red Sox. I think the Yankees ultimately will have the better bullpen when it's all said and done. I think they're going to add another elite level option in the 8th inning, and we'll see which direction they go. But I like the Yankees pen once we get to spring training. Right now, I'd say Boston probably has a little bit better pen at the moment. John, are the Yankees looking at Pete Alonso? I'm sure they at least considered it, but it looks like Pete Alonso is going to be going back to the New York Mets. I would say pretty much all the other teams in the league right now would love to have a guy like Pete Alonso, but what number is it going to cost? And it sounds like he would prefer to stay with the Mets. Mets seem like they would prefer to have him back. It's just a matter of getting the deal done. Hopefully they get that one done before Christmas, but we will see. Do you think Framber Valdez gets traded? Welcome in, Matthew. I don't think he gets moved right now. I think they're going to try to push for an extension, probably for the next month or so. If they get to, say, January 15th, and he's still not signed to an extension, then I think we're going to see some headlines about Framber Valdez being available on the trade market once again. I'm sure they're going to be listening to offers that entire time, but if he doesn't agree to an extension that fits their timeline, say 5 years at, say, $25-30 million, then I think they might choose to move in a different direction. But until we get to that point, it's a little early to speculate on Framber Valdez. I get it. They just traded Kyle Tucker, but you look at what his free agency was going to look like, $300 to $400 million, 9 to 10 years. Both of those numbers are out of the realm of possibility for the Astros to sign. And he said he was going to take it to free agency no matter what. He wasn't interested in signing an extension. Made it urgent for them to move him this offseason, and they got really good interest in him right off the bat. Two very desperate teams in the Cubs and Yankees, and they got a great price for him. Valdez is a little bit different in the way teams would pursue him. Teams are going to need starting pitching. They may not overpay to the level that they did here for Tucker, but they would definitely give a pretty penny for him. I'm sure that the Astros would rather retain him because he is the ace of their staff, and they would definitely be a worse team without him. They are a worse team without Tucker, but they've at least lengthened their championship window here by bringing back some major league talent in Paredes and some good quality prospects in return for Tucker. Basically, doubling the value that they had on Tucker, especially when they weren't going to be able to re-sign him anyway. Lucas, what are your predictions on Joc Pederson's free agency prospects? Well, multiple reports have him connected to the Texas Rangers. He had a career year last year. I like the guy. I just don't like him for the Texas Rangers. I hope he does well. I think he's going to get a raise off of what he did last year. So I'd expect probably a one-year deal, say $14-15 million, maybe 2 years for 25. But, Texas looks like the front runner right now. I'm sure there's other teams that are going to miss on their corner outfield prospects. Say like Teoscar Hernandez goes back to the Dodgers. The Yankees don't have a whole lot of interest there in Santander, so maybe they would check in on Joc Pederson next. Blue Jays have a ton of money that they have yet to spend. Maybe they go the Joc Pederson route, but it seems like the leader in the clubhouse right now would be the Texas Rangers. Sean, who is the other player that is going to the A's? Well, let's go ahead and update our page here and just see if they have any news yet on that one. Doesn't look like anybody has it yet in my feed. Let's check over here. No news yet on who the other player could be. How interesting would it be if it turned out to be Yandy Diaz was the other piece going in that trade? I think we would have heard about it by now. But that would be kind of interesting there. Burnes to San Fran today? Possibly. We had a show last night where we discussed the report from John Heyman that the bidding was down to really 3 teams. The Giants were viewed as the favorite. Blue Jays were viewed as kind of in that mix as well. Feinsand had reported a day before that the Jays were the favorite there. And then a mystery team. John Heyman loves to say a mystery team. He pontificated that the Rangers were that mystery team. And so, after we did a whole live yesterday, we discussed it quite a bit. But after I got off the live, I got through just kind of thinking about, where Burnes is in his free agency. He's had a lot of interest from a bunch of teams. Mets at one point were in there. The Orioles, I'm sure, at one point were in there. Red Sox at one point were in there as well. But if he's got it down to 3 teams, a mystery team, let's say it is Texas for the mystery team, just for the sake of argument. What is the reason why he hasn't signed yet? Is it to get more money out of the teams that are left? Well, you would have already gotten the best offer, I believe, from the Toronto Blue Jays. I think they would have overbid all the other teams here. So if that's the case, says to me he doesn't really want to go to Toronto. If they would have the highest bid already on the table and are already clearly above the other two, tells me he doesn't want to go to Toronto. So that really leaves the possibility of the quote-unquote mystery team. In this case, we're going to say it's Texas. Or the San Francisco Giants. San Francisco's viewed as the favorite there. Love the signing they made of Willy Adames, but why wouldn't he have signed already? Maybe the bidding isn't quite high enough yet, and they want to get the Giants up a little bit in their offer. Very possible. Or the mystery team that he's looking at is a team he really wants to go to. Remember, the Rangers have had interest in him for over 3 years now, something we discussed quite a bit last night. And before they signed Jacob deGrom, they were expected to go after Corbin Burnes when he hit free agency. Well, now's the free agency for Corbin Burnes, and yet they may very well be the team that's the mystery team for him. And the Rangers could pull this off. They have roughly $22, $23 million left before they hit the luxury tax threshold. Say they sign Corbin Burnes to 7 or 8 years. Let's call it 8 for $240, makes it roughly $30 million a year. You backload the deal, that way you can save a little bit on the front end, knocks the obligation down for a tax perspective down to, say, $25 million. You find a taker for John Gray. Say the Oakland A's want to add a number 3 starter to their staff. We just saw them give up 3 players and a compensation pick for Jeffrey Springs, a guy coming off of injury with a salary very similar to John Gray. Very similar pitcher, but you're only committing 1 year here to John Gray. I think the A's would be a great team for him. So say they offload the deal for John Gray. You save $13 million. That leaves you with roughly $9 million to finish off your bullpen. That's a plan I could see them going out and doing. Also, if they bring in Corbin Burnes, say the A's were the team that they trade John Gray to, you attach Jack Leiter to that deal and maybe another couple prospects to finish that off, and you bring in Mason Miller as well. That would finish off your bullpen, and then you can spend about another $9 million on an 8th inning setup guy, bring back Kirby Yates. There's all kinds of manifestations of this, permutations that the Rangers could go through. But, that's just one thought process I had about Burnes' free agency. Why hasn't he signed yet? And I believe if he wanted to go to Toronto, he would already have signed. So for me, it looks like it's going to come down to the Giants or the quote-unquote mystery team. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the Giants step up their offer and he signs there. He is a Oakland boy, or he is a San Francisco Bay Area kid. And going back home, I'm sure would be appealing to him. But we'll see where he goes. I do think he does sign before Monday. Today, maybe. We haven't seen any major free agents really sign since the winter meetings really wrapped up. We've seen some big trades, but the free agent market really hasn't freed itself up a little bit. So maybe today will be that day. Yankees losing Soto and settling for Bellinger is awful. I wouldn't go quite that far. They tried for Tucker. Losing Soto does hurt, but they need to do it kind of a group effort, if you will. Addressing first base, addressing center field, addressing third base. They already addressed their starting pitcher, and now they've addressed their closer issues. I kind of like the way that the Yankees have gone about business this offseason. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad offseason, even with the loss of Juan Soto. Now, it's all hinged upon, what they get for their lineup. If they don't get anybody to solve the hole in their lineup, then I'll have a different commentary for it. But right now, I would say the Yankees have done fairly well and are still a work in progress. We'll see what happens with their lineup construction, but I do expect them to add at least a couple of bats to that lineup. Will there be a lot of signings before Christmas? You bet, Sean. I would expect the relief market to have the majority of those arms come off in the next 3 to 4 days. Honestly, I expect quite a few of them to come off the board in the next day or two. Some trade possibilities as well to come off the board on the relief side. Now, Bregman, I do believe, is going to be coming through in the next couple of days. Burnes as well. And then we're going to see the corner outfield market start to move. Santander, Hernandez, those players I expect to move as well fairly quickly here. No disrespect, but Nolan is better than Alex Bregman. No disrespect, but his offense and defense is better than Bregman. I believe Houston could have traded him, plus maybe more players from Willard. I'm sorry, Bregman's the better piece. He's younger, higher ceiling. I get it. Arenado has the better back of the baseball card at this point, but at this point, I would say Bregman is the better piece. That's why he would be commanding a far better salary in free agency. If both guys were on the free agent market right now, maybe Arenado clears 3 for 90. Bregman's going to clear probably 7 for 210. So clearly Bregman is the better piece. Sox, Burnes' mystery team is Cincy. I also heard Cincy is a team that is looking for some starting pitching. They're in there for Nick Pivetta. Would not surprise me if they're in there for Burnes. It would surprise me, though, that they would be willing to go to that number for Burnes. We'll see what happens, but for me, that's a little bit out of their price range. They haven't shown a willingness to go to that level before. They're spending the money on Nick Martinez for 1 year, so they don't necessarily have to worry about long-term money committed to a Nick Martinez. But clearly Corbin Burnes is a better pitcher. Maybe with that money coming off the books, it would kind of free them up to add an impact starter. They have a lot of injury risks, red flags, poor performance in that starting rotation. So maybe getting Burnes would help alleviate that. But I think Nick Pivetta fits what the Cincinnati Reds have done in the past, kind of fits the mold of way that organization works. So I think that would be a more likely candidate for them to sign. Welcome back, Brianna. Appreciate you continuing to say your Phillies won. But they haven't won anything yet this offseason. They haven't done anything yet. So, as much as I love your enthusiasm in our chat, let's, say something to the effect of, what you think is going to happen with Bohm or something with your team. But, the Phillies haven't done anything yet. They're right now the third best team in the National League as far as I'm concerned. They could ultimately shake up their team and be on top. But for me, they haven't done anything yet. So let's try to keep the conversation focused on things that are actually happening right now. Willard, I think Houston will use the money saved in Tucker, plus they're still trying to improve. Absolutely. I'm right there with you, Willard. I think they are going to spend the money that they saved on Tucker. I think they're going to bring in somebody for a first baseman or a third baseman, depending on what they do with Arenado. I think they're going to add a guy like Anthony Santander, and ultimately, I think they'll be in a better shape than before the trade for than before when they had Kyle Tucker on the roster. I really like the way Houston pivoted from Tucker and brought in Paredes, brought in Smith, brought in Wazinski, saved the money by not bringing in Suzuki in that deal, and now have the ability to go out in free agency and add a corner outfield bat that nobody else is looking at, a guy like Anthony Santander. Sean, when does Bellinger get traded? I would expect sometime in the next few days. It sounds like the Yankees and Mariners are the two most likely teams for him. Yankees are viewed as the leader there because, they're willing to at least take on that full contract, but there's hoping that the Cubs ultimately do so. But I think the Cubs' willingness to go after a guy like Luis Castillo might open up the market there on the West Coast for him to go to Seattle. We'll see. The Mariners have registered interest in Bellinger for a number of years now. We'll see what happens there. Let's see here. Sox. Are Red Sox and Orioles done? Although Baltimore may not have started. Absolutely. The Baltimore Orioles needed to bring in Corbin Burnes this offseason. I'm sorry. It's just they needed to do something better there in their rotation. And ultimately, losing Burnes not only makes their team worse next season, it continues a disturbing trend for the Baltimore Orioles. We discussed this a few different times. All right, Brianna, that's enough. Period. Stop. Anyway, as for the Orioles, they need to get something done here with their starting rotation. Corbin Burnes is the ace of that staff. They need to get something done here from the standpoint they don't have a number one. They don't have a number two in that rotation. Right now, they're going to be relying on Grayson Rodriguez. They're going to be relying on Zach Eflin as well as their number 1 and 2 in that staff. They need to address that. Now, Orioles fans have told me that maybe Dylan Cease would be the next guy, but that's just continuing the trend that they've had the last couple of years, trading prospects for Flaherty, not re-signing him, allowing to leave in free agency. I get it. He didn't have a good year for you. You pivot and you move towards Corbin Burnes. You invest the trade capital, but at the time you traded for him, you have to realize that he's going to be hitting free agency in 12 months. So what are you going to be doing at that point? Are you willing to spend the $30 million a year to be able to re-sign him? Are you going to go out there and spend the money to do it? That's a big question there. So for me, they have to bring in Burnes. I don't think they're going to, but that's a big question mark that the Orioles are going to have to answer, and a big question mark for Elias there in Baltimore. What are they going to do long term? So, thank you guys for joining us. Got like 75 of you guys all of a sudden. Wow. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. But the Red Sox, they are not done. They're still looking to add another bat to that lineup. They're also looking for another reliever as well. Orioles are going to have to add some starting pitching at some point, whoever that might ultimately end up being. Maybe it's Sean Manaea at this point, but who knows? If I'm the Orioles, I would try to move heaven and earth to bring back Corbin Burnes and then try to bring in a number 2 like Nathan Eovaldi. Obviously, he's already off the board, but that would leave Sean Manaea, somebody like that, to fill in as my number 2 in my rotation. Rafe, welcome in. Appreciate you for joining us. I think this is the first time I've seen you chat in our chat there, so appreciate you joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you're new here. Do the Rangers have a chance at Treinen? No. Blake Treinen is already off the board. He has signed with the LA Dodgers. 2 years, $22 million. That was the same day as Juan Soto. That I can understand why that news may have gotten lost in translation, but Treinen is off the board. Thank you for telling him, Sox fan. Appreciate you. Welcome in, John. Good morning, folks. Rangers, the Burnes mystery team is very intriguing. I would trade another player before Gray. I would too, but it's a salary thing for me. If you're trying to stay under the tax for ownership, you're going to have to move one of probably Leody Taveras and Nathaniel Lowe, or Leody Taveras and John Gray. But he does give you a lot of depth in that rotation for John Gray, and give you an option in the bullpen if things go nuclear back there as well. Any Rangers rumors at all? Right now, there's quite a few. Joc Pederson is rumored to be signing with Texas. That coming from Evan Grant. Conversations are still ongoing there. They're in the market for relief pitching. That's kind of where they're focused. And then John Heyman's report yesterday is that they could be the mystery team in on Corbin Burnes. We'll see what happens. But for me, that would be a great signing for Texas. A little bit curious because they have shown a willingness to spend in previous years, but they've shown also a willingness not to go above the tax this year. That's a move that would push them above, so they would have to have a trade probably worked out, if they wanted to get back under the tax. Maybe CY does what he did a couple of years ago when Nathan Eovaldi signed and said, hey, ownership, we have a real chance this year. Give me a little extra money, allow us to go in the tax, and allow us to get Corbin Burnes. That could also be in the offing as well. Welcome in, Jimmy. Let's go Mets, okay. Alberto, welcome back. Just dropping in. Can you tell me the status of the Dodgers roster moves? Well, they of course already brought in Blake Snell. They addressed the bullpen a little bit with Blake Treinen. They brought back Tommy Edman. They brought in Michael Conforto. They're still looking for a right-handed hitting outfielder, and then they're also looking for some more bullpen help. Devin Williams was thought to be the most logical guy going that direction. They had heavy interest in the Brewers closer. He obviously has left to go to the New York Yankees. Top options right now, probably Tanner Scott in free agency for that bullpen. Teoscar Hernandez is the right-handed hitting outfielder, but they've cooled a little bit on him. There were rumors connecting them to Nolan Arenado. Those rumors have also died down. But they're looking at some bullpen help. Ryan Presley has been one name that's been floated out quite a bit for the Dodgers as well. But appreciate you joining us this morning. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Sox fan, has Boston or Toronto passed Baltimore in the East? Baltimore, to me, if they don't add a starting pitcher, I think Boston has already passed them. Toronto, I think they're below Baltimore. We'll see where they go. But for me, Baltimore has to address that starting staff. Maybe they go the trade route again. But again, that's a big question mark going forward. You're going to have the same problem that you just had with Flaherty and Burnes, because Cease is going to hit free agency after this year as well. Are you willing to sign him right now to a 7-8 year deal worth $30 million a year? If you're not, don't make the trade. If you're not willing to spend $30 million on these guys, why are we trading prospects for only 1 year of these guys? I get it. The cost is a little bit less than, say, if they had 2 or 3 years left on their deal. And I get it. You want to have high quality pitchers in your rotation, but at a certain point you have to invest the dollars in it. And so until the Orioles do it, I'm going to have questions for their team. Welcome in, Juan. Where does Santander land? I think it's going to end up with either Toronto or Houston at this point. Toronto looks like the bridesmaid of this offseason, which is sad to say. I know Mark's one of our frequent commenters. I know he liked my Facebook post for our video here as well. So I'm sorry for your Blue Jays fans, but it looks like you're taking the mantle of what the Giants had been the last 5 years. Whereas the Giants, during Farhan Zaidi's tenure, basically finished as the bridesmaid for all the top free agents. They miss on all the top guys. Guys like Xander Bogaerts, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Aaron Judge. All these guys ultimately choose another team over the Giants instead of taking their money. They end up getting guys at the very end of free agency, guys who have no other teams that are left out there. They get guys willing to sign for 1 year with an opt-out. If they don't succeed, they can take another year of your money. And that's how the Giants worked for the last couple of years. Buster Posey comes in, and they immediately sign their top target there in Willy Adames. They're still in there for their second target in Corbin Burnes. Whereas the Blue Jays right now, they were in there for all these other guys. Soto they were in there for. They're in there for Bregman right now. They still very well might end up with Bregman. But if they don't, they miss on Burnes. They're left with Anthony Santander, who, by process of elimination, all the other teams have said, nah, we're good. We'll go ahead and go in a different direction. But they would be left with signing him to, say, a 5-year, $100 million deal. They finish as the bridesmaid, unfortunately. So, sorry, Toronto fans. I just think it looks less promising than it did, say, a week ago for your prospects to sign some of these top guys. It looks like they might be going elsewhere. But hopefully they can sign one of these guys. Bregman, I think, would be a great fit for them. But Santander, if you're putting me on the hot seat, I would say he probably signs with Toronto or Houston. Lucas, could you tier list potential Roki Sasaki destinations? Good question. For those of you wondering, he is the international free agent coming over that cannot sign until January 15th or through the 23rd of next year to be a part of next year's international bonus pool. He's going to command all of the bonus pool from one of those teams. Pretty much every team in the league is going to have interest in him. I would say the Dodgers are definitely the heavy favorite. They're clear, tier 1, A, whatever you want to call it. Tier 2 is going to be kind of a set of 4 teams. That's going to include the Padres, the Rangers, the Giants, and the Mariners. And then there's the group 3 anyway, group C, whatever you want to call it anyway, that I would include the Cubs, the Mets, the Yankees, other teams that have interest in Roki Sasaki. And then group D is teams like the Marlins, who really don't have a chance. The Rockies, who really don't have a chance. But that's kind of how, if you're asking me to tier those teams, that's kind of how I would set it up. You want Jeff Hoffman. He did have a great year in the first half last year. Struggled a little bit more in the second half, but he was a really good option out of the bullpen. Could turn back into being a starter as well. Maybe he's another Clay Holmes type signing. We'll see what happens there. Rafe, has anyone reached out to the Rangers regarding Lowe? Do you think the Rangers actually trade him? I don't think they're actively looking right now. I think they're gauging interest, absolutely. I think the acquisition of Berger makes it at least feasible that they could move him and then platoon Berger and Smith at first base. But I think the more likely option is that they would trade, if they needed to save money, that they would probably trade Leody Taveras out of the outfield and then John Gray from their pitching staff if they added a starting pitcher. Now, if they find a taker for Nathaniel Lowe that gives them an elite level closer, one idea that we had floated out in the last few days was Devin Williams, a 3-team trade, sending Lowe to the Yankees, to Cortez to the Brewers, and Williams to Texas. That, of course, they cut out the middleman there and just sent Williams back to the Yankees. But something like that could work. Say like Bednar from the Pirates, who had an up-and-down year last year, could be available. They are looking for some hitting. He would qualify and save them a little bit of money. But that's one possibility as well. I don't think they're actively looking to move him, though, unless they make a big addition like a Corbin Burnes. I don't think he's going to be traded. As far as has anyone reached out specifically, nobody that we've heard of as far as a team reaching out, but we'll see there. Red Sox, or Sox fan, I like Walker Buehler in Boston or Arizona. Arizona, I don't think so unless they move Jordan Montgomery. Once we get some of these bigger moves done, say Corbin Burnes signing, the trade of Jeffrey Springs is going through now, say the signing of Sean Manaea as well, then we'll get into those level of starting pitchers. Then we could see Jordan Montgomery move probably right around Christmas, maybe a little bit after. But I think that's going to take time. I think Buehler is probably going to go to one of the Mets or Cubs, if I had to guess right now. Matthew, what could the Braves do this offseason? They're still looking for a starting pitcher. They're looking for a corner outfield bat, and they're looking to go cheap in their bullpen. Kind of what the Rangers did with Webb. They're looking to do that with their bullpen. Add a couple of low-level signings, say 1 year, $1 million, 1 year, $3 million. They don't want to invest a lot of money in the relief pitching market. Now, as far as a corner outfielder, Joc Pederson has been floated as a guy who could fit their needs. And then in the starting rotation, they had interest in Nathan Eovaldi. They have since, of course, missed on him. Charlie Morton seems like a great fit for them, but sounds like the Braves haven't reached out to Morton's camp, much to his disappointment. Sounds like he wanted to retire after this season as a member of the Atlanta Braves. They're looking a little bit bigger in that starting staff, and Sean Manaea is a name that's been mentioned a couple of different times out there. Walker Buehler's been mentioned. Max Scherzer's been mentioned as well. But I don't think they have a whole lot of money to spend on either of those positions, but they do have a little bit that they'd be willing to spend into the luxury tax in order to bring in a competent number 5 starter for that rotation. Sounds like they're looking to have Grant Holmes anyway start a few games for them this year as well. Yankees want Bregman. That's going to be a big overpay. I imagine they're going to be looking at some bats they didn't originally target this offseason. I thought Bregman would have been a great fit anyway, but over the last couple of days, they hadn't been connected as much because they were targeting Kyle Tucker. Well, they fall through there. Say they get Bellinger. They're still going to be looking for a third baseman to improve their defense on that side of the ball. He'd be a great fit, help out their lineup as well, and we'll see which direction they go here. But for me, I think there's an impetus for the Yankees to add a couple of different bats to their lineup. Let's see here. What's the latest on the Cubs? They're interested in Luis Castillo. That coming from this morning from John Heyman. Possibly a trade could be in the works there. Possibly Bellinger going back the other way. Kind of a natural fit. But we'll see where they go. For me, they have to address their pitching staff by getting a number 5 starter in there. I think Buehler's been the most frequent name that's been mentioned as a guy that could sign in a free agency. But they're looking for a taker in Bellinger. So they're not willing to retain some salary. So maybe going out and getting a Luis Castillo, who I think is a better pitcher than Walker Buehler, might be the better way to go for them if they're not looking to retain salary on Buehler or on Bellinger. Rafe, I heard the Mets were not going to re-sign Polar Bear Pete because they would target Vladdy next season. Any thoughts? I don't think that anything has I don't think one has to do with the other. So, for instance, say they do sign Pete Alonso. I don't think that would preclude them from going after Vlad Guerrero next year. Reason being is because they could put Guerrero at third base, put Alonso at DH. There's all kinds of different things that they could do. Now, would it make it a little bit more of an inflexible roster? Absolutely. But I think the Mets are going to be the team that re-signs Pete Alonso. Mets do want Vlad next year. I do agree there. They're big game hunting right now. They're the big bad team in the NL right now, along with the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Braves, and the Padres. They're looking to spend and improve their team in any way possible. Guerrero would be one way to do that. Let's see here. Lucas, what do you think of Nate Lowe to the Yankees? I think that'd be a good fit for them. I think the short porch in right field would be great for a left-handed hitter. I think his power numbers would pick up as well. But I would really like to see them add some left-handed hitting. Lowe would kind of fit that for them. So, I like the idea of Nate Lowe or another left-handed hitter going there. That's why I like the idea of Cody Bellinger going that direction as well. Gives them some defensive versatility as well. But, Nate Lowe would be a good fit. It'd be offloading some money for Texas and adding some cheap offense because he's only going to be making $11 million roughly this year for Texas. And if Texas gets Corbin Burnes, they need to save a little bit. Could be a fit, but we'll see. Is Buehler more of a 2 or 3 or a 4 in a rotation? Good question, Sox fan. For me, Buehler at his best is probably an ace, honestly. The injury really hurt him, though. I don't think he ever gets back to that level of being an ace again. I think at his best now is probably a 2 in somebody's rotation, but you can't pay him like that. You can't expect him to be like that because, well, the injury issues. And when he's not in a competitive environment, I worry about him being able to perform at that level. He's a guy that wants the ball in those pressure situations and rises to the challenge. So for me, I would probably plan on him being a number 4 in my rotation. And maybe when playoffs come around, he might elevate his game to be a number 3. Or maybe even a number 2 if some guys falter under that pressure. So I would be signing him more as a number 4 in a rotation with the expectation that once we get into the playoffs, his performance is going to pick up, whereas others might drop off because of the pressure. Matthew, where do you think A.J. Minter signs? Where do I think he signs? I think he signs probably with Texas. He's been connected with Texas for the better part of a week and a half now. I think a Kirby Yates deal, 1 year, $4.5 million sounds about right. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but 1 year, $4.5 million sounds about right there. Maybe a return to the Braves at some point is in the offing as well. teams that are looking for a 7th, 8th inning guys, pretty much every team in the league is looking for that. But the Texas Rangers have been one of the most frequent teams mentioned in his free agency. Luis, welcome in. Welcome in. If you're new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Got about 85 of you guys with us right now. With Soto inability to field and run, I have him being the new DH. I don't think that's going to happen. He's still 26 years old. He can still field decently. You can still have him run. He's not necessarily a base runner. He's not going to, save you 18 runs a year out there in the outfield. But he can do the job and at least allow you to do different things at designated hitter for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Which, for me, would allow them to move Pete Alonso there if he can't play first base anymore, where he would still have at least league average defense out there with Juan Soto. I think he'd be great with the New York Mets in that outfield right now because, again, you have Starling Marte out there. You're basically taking his place. Marte's gotten a lot older the past year or two. Speed started to drop off. Injuries have caught up with him, and they're looking to offload his deal. So for me, I would still put Soto in my outfield at least for the next 5 years or so. Now, the next 10 years of the deal, maybe he is the DH. But for right now, I would still have him in the outfield. Rafe, A's trading for Springs from Rays according to MLB rumors. Thoughts? That's kind of what we led our show with. The A's are indeed getting Jeffrey Springs. Injuries, higher contract, probably the reasons why the Rays were looking to move him at the deadline last year, ultimately chose to hold on to him because he wasn't able to pitch yet. And so this offseason, they made it a point to save a little bit of money here, so they find a taker here in the A's who are looking to improve their rotation. I think he probably slots in there as the number 2 starter. I think he probably performs better than Severino, honestly, when healthy. But when healthy is the big caveat there. But a heavy package going back the other way. Joe Boyle, Jacob Waters, Will Simpson, and a competitive balance round A pick as well. Good return here for the Rays as they continue to kind of churn things over, keep things moving with that roster, save a little bit of money here with Springs. What kind of prospects would Nathaniel Lowe bring this way if traded? His value is right around $8 to $10 million, maybe 11 if I remember correctly. So he's not going to command like, a number 1 prospect off of any team, but I could see, say, a top 15 prospect off of a team and maybe a couple of young, low-level A-ball players. But to save the money, maybe the Rangers do that if they do an impact signing like Corbin Burnes. Rafe, do you think the Rangers bring back any of their pending free agents, or do you think they mostly going after new arms? A little bit of both. I think they're going to be looking at Kirby Yates, David Robertson, a little bit lesser extent. I think they're looking for closers first and foremost, and then they might go a little bit cheaper for an 8th inning guy. I think they're still in other talks that we are not privy to, like the possibility of Corbin Burnes that John Heyman pointed out on his report yesterday on Bleacher Report Walk-Off. If they are the mystery team in there for Corbin Burnes, that tells me they might have more money to spend on some extravagances that we weren't necessarily expecting coming into this offseason. I think it's a pure case of CY telling ownership this is a clear difference-making player, much like Nathan Eovaldi was when they signed him. He's still on the open market. There's an opportunity here. Let's see if we can jump on it. And maybe the Rangers do. If they do that, I think they would try to offload a little bit of salary to make it work for their ownership group a little bit better. Do you think, as far as the other free agents, I don't think they're going to be bringing back a Jankowski. They're not going to try to return a Robbie Grossman, players like that. I think they're going to be looking to turn the page. Jose Leclerc, I don't think, is coming back as well. Lucas, who do you think is next for Max Scherzer? Good question. I think he's going to be looking for one of the teams that's going to be competing for a World Series. So teams like the Phillies, if they have a hole in their rotation, they could sign him. I think the Yankees, if they had made a trade for Kyle Tucker, could have been a possibility. Mets are looking for a starting pitcher. If they miss on Manaea, that could be a fit there. The Dodgers, say they miss on Sasaki, they're going to need a number 5 starter. Clayton Kershaw could be that guy, but Max Scherzer could also be there. Teams that need, starting pitching that are competing for a World Series is where I think Scherzer could ultimately end up. If I had to handicap it right now, I would lean more towards the Phillies. I wouldn't rule out the Texas Rangers completely, but he would have to sign a deep discount to stay in Texas, probably in the $10 to $12 million range for him to come back to Texas. And I don't think Texas is going to do that at this point. Sox fans, Tanner Scott to LA, I think that is a very good possibility. They miss on Devin Williams. I think he's probably their next target there as their 8th or 9th inning guy. If they don't get him, Ryan Presley. But appreciate you guys joining us today. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Let me go ahead and flip over the screen for you guys so you guys can see where we're at. Check in on, see if anything is happening in the market right now. Alrighty. One other bit of news that the Rangers did sign Tucker Barnhart to a minor league deal. Another catcher who can't really hit too much anyway, but this underscores the need for catching for them and the lack of faith in Sam Huff and the organization. I think the Rangers just need to offload Sam Huff in a trade this offseason. So if you're a team in need of offense at catcher, Sam Huff might be an option for you. You're going to have to give him time at the major league level, though, if you're comfortable with it. So teams that need offense, that are struggling, say like the Marlins, say like the Rockies, I think he'd be a great get for those teams out there. Could see a minor trade here in the offing with the Texas Rangers with Sam Huff here in the next few days as well. See any big name trades happening this next week? I do. I think we're going to get a trade of Ryan Presley from Houston at some point. I think Bellinger is going to get moved before the end of the weekend. I think Castillo could be moved. It sounds like the Mariners are looking to save some money with Castillo by acquiring a bat with his contract because they have some good young starting pitching. They want to utilize that payroll right now on offense. And so the trade that they made to bring in Luis Castillo at the time worked great for them, but their young pitching is ready to be at the big league level right now. So moving Luis Castillo makes some sense. They could recoup some value, improve their lineup by trading him for Bohm or Bellinger or whoever might be willing to take on his deal in exchange for some offense. There are rumors of the Giants and Nats for Max. Giants, I could believe to a certain extent, mainly because they have money to spend, one-year deal. But this would be more of shades of Farhan Zaidi than more than anything else. For the Nats, I don't see them as a championship contender. Maybe he wants to finish things out with the team that he had World Series success with. Maybe that's in the works. I could see that happening to a lesser extent. But I think his top priority is to compete and to win. Max Scherzer is probably the most competitive guy I've ever seen in a baseball uniform. He is not willing to admit defeat ever, and he still has enough in the tank to where he can be a productive guy. When he's on, he's probably still an ace on a staff, but that's a big question mark. Injuries kind of take him out. You can probably only count on him for 20 starts this next year, and he's going to have a couple of starts in there where he's going to give up a few long balls and get blown up, and he's going to have an elevated ERA. But when he's on, he's still going to be the Max Scherzer of old. And you just got to be willing to live with the lumps, to live with the inability to stay healthy all season long at this point. I think he's probably got 1 year left, maybe a max of 2. I think Verlander's washed, but Scherzer, I think, has got 1 good year left in him. And I think going to a championship team is where he's going to ultimately go. Alonso needs to come back home. Yes, he does, Mets fan. I think he's going to go back to your Mets. Do you see the Red Sox getting someone by Christmas? I think is your question. Your next one there is Castillo for Wilyer Abreu. That would make some sense. They need to improve that rotation a little bit more. They have been connected to Burnes in the past, Nick Pivetta as well. I think Castillo would be a good option for them. They do need to free up some space out there in the outfield for Roman Anthony, and that would be a great way to do it. I think the Mariners would have to eat some money on that one, but Abreu would be a good bat for the Mariners. I wouldn't say that's a 0 chance that happens, but I would say there's a less than 20% chance that a trade like that would be finished off by both teams. I think Castillo, I think would be a great fit on a number of different teams as far as a starting pitcher, but who's willing to take on that salary is the bigger question there. Wilyer Abreu is available from the Red Sox, but it's going to have to be for an impact piece, and I'm not sure if the Red Sox would see Castillo, as good as he is, impact enough of a piece given his salary. You're all set with Pivetta? Sure. Over under 5.5 years for White Sox to finish the season with a winning record. Good question, Rafe. I get you're kind of doing it with tongue in cheek, but for me, I think they'll get above 500 within 3 years. I think they're going to have the prospects to do it within probably the next 2, but I'll give it 3. The White Sox were really bad last year, historically bad. I think they've added enough pieces here over the last couple of years where they're going to be right back at the top again. But we'll see, where they go. Don't worry, guys. My moderator will take care of the comments there in just a second. We appreciate you guys taking part in our chat. It's really fun to have this discourse with you guys, but let's try to keep from spamming in the chat if you don't mind. So thank you guys for joining us here today. Got 100 people with us. We have broken the 100 people plateau. Thank you guys for joining us. Wow, that's impressive on a Saturday afternoon now. But in case you guys are just joining us, we've had a great week of trades, some great signings as well. Winter meetings went phenomenally. Juan Soto signed the greatest contract in professional sports history, 15 years, $765 million. We saw a couple of great trades, a couple of great signings as well. Over the last couple of days alone, we've seen some great trades. Kyle Tucker going from the Houston Astros to the Chicago Cubs. We saw the Yankees make a move for Devin Williams, and there's more moves to be made. I would expect a few more to get done today. Rafe, who's my favorite team? My favorite team is the Texas Rangers. I try not to hide that. That way you guys know where I'm coming from. I don't like to be these national media correspondents who lie about not having a favorite team. They just value the play on the field. They cheer for players, not teams. Bull. Everybody grew up rooting for a team at some point. And so, just be honest about it. Don't lie to us. We're not dumb. Just be honest and own your bias and just realize that, sometimes the things that you say are going to have more legitimacy because you have insight into what's actually going on. For instance, I know quite a bit about the Rangers, their farm system, the leanings that they're going through as an organization, the history of the team, all those kinds of things, more than I know about, say, the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. Doesn't mean that I don't know anything about the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's just that I know a little bit more about the Rangers organization than some others. But it also means that sometimes I might see through rose-colored glasses when it comes to the Rangers, and you guys can help keep me honest when it comes to that. So I trust you guys to hold me to that, instead of, just saying, oh, well, I take this guy at his word for everything that he says about the Rangers. I'm going to give you as much detail and as much facts as I can give you, but I give you the understanding that, hey, I'm saying it from a standpoint where I'm coming from. Whereas a national reporter, I'm going to say there are some reporters out there that, truly do not have a bias. For instance, like Buster Olney for me, he might really have liked the time when the Yankees and Red Sox were at their best in their heyday because it was great for the national media. That might be quote-unquote his bias, but I still think he does a really great job of staying really objective in his reporting. So that's a really good thing to have as a reporter. But I also like it when reporters are honest about their biases in those kinds of things. Welcome in Jive. Welcome in Emmerich. Bellinger to Yankees soon. I think that is possible. Horner to the Mariners. I don't think it's quite as likely. Again, injuries there kind of precluding that one from happening at least until the trade deadline as far as I'm concerned. I think the Yankees are still the favorite for Bellinger, but the Mariners have certainly entered the chat. Rafe, I like you more. I'm a Rangers fan too. Well, thank you, Rafe. Thank you. Sox fan, Bellinger is not the answer. I don't think he's the only answer, but I do think he's part of the solution. Bellinger gives them some great defensive versatility, first base and in center field. The reason why that's important, you have to get Aaron Judge out of center. Period. He's the most important cog on that team. They have to get him out of center to keep him healthy, to keep him for the long term healthiest as they possibly can. Putting Bellinger out there in center, moving Judge back to right is exactly what they need to do. Now, offensively, say they still need a left-handed bat. Bellinger fits that. I think he'd be a great fit there. But they say they bring in Christian Walker as well. They would still be able to use Bellinger in that lineup in center field. So I think Bellinger is a great part of the answer, but I think they need at least two bats. Let's see, you're a Rangers fan from Europe. Wow. Okay, we got some European fans with us now. We had some Canadians with us. We had some people from Florida as well, California joining us. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. It's really nice to see, where our fan base is coming from. I'm based in Texas, about an hour and a half east of Dallas is where I'm at anyway. So, I usually get quite a few more southern, viewers, but I do get the occasional Canadian viewer. Florida as well. I get quite a few guys from Philadelphia as well. But it's really nice to see, where our, fan base is coming from. So thank you guys for joining us. Let's see here. John, how do international signings affect these weather meetings? I think you mean winter meetings. Winter meetings are over. But these international signings, I think, is going to make a big impact. Most notably for Roki Sasaki. I think teams are holding up on that international market right now for players next year. I don't think they're coming to agreement. So the international free agent class starting in January 15th, I think is going to be coming to a little bit slower of a head than we've seen in recent memory. Remember when Shohei Ohtani came over, he did something very similar, and that's what I'm expecting here for Roki Sasaki. Now, the other guys that are coming over, that are not eligible for that bonus pool money, that I think is going to move fairly quickly. I don't think they're going to wait until January to get things done, so I'd expect those guys to sign a little bit quicker in free agency. Hoping your Jays sign Teo. I think they do need a corner outfielder. I think Hernandez would be a great fit there. What's going on with Christian Walker? The Houston Astros are said to have interest. Yankees have some interest. Blue Jays have some interest. And I think the Mariners would be a great fit, but I haven't heard any rumors connecting the two yet. Sox, you're a big fan, or how big is an upgrade of Walker from Rizzo? I think defense is absolutely great with Walker. Rizzo was decent. I think the offense is better with Walker right now as well. I think it's not going to cost a whole lot to sign. So as far as an upgrade over Rizzo, I'd still say it's a significant upgrade at this point. Santander, I think, would be a great piece for a bunch of different teams out there, but I think right now it's looking like Toronto or Houston most likely for him. One of these teams that misses on Bregman could turn towards Santander. Welcome from Quebec. Thank you guys for joining us. Let's see here. Melvin, I think this is the first time I've seen you chat. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you have not already. Cubs fan from Grand Prairie, Texas. Wow, I actually drove through there about 2 days ago. So thank you for joining us. Cubs fans, we got quite a few of those in here. Mets, I'm in New York, 45 minutes from Citi Field. That was a pretty special scene, seeing the Soto up on the Jumbotron there, or what do you call it? The on the big board anyway. On the scoreboard, we'll call it. Let's see, Sox fan, I'm in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. That'd be a great place to visit. Anyway. Ben from Venezuela. Wow. Okay. All right. Welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you guys for subscribing. Used to be a big Dirk Nowitzki fan. I kind of expanded to a Dallas sports fan from there. I'm a huge Dirk Nowitzki fan. I know you're from Europe, Lucas, so it doesn't surprise me that you're a Dirk fan. But to me, my number one hero in life is my dad. My number two is Dirk Nowitzki. I only have two heroes in my life, and those are Dirk and my dad. But on my wall right here, I actually have Dirk, a big old MVP poster holding the finals trophy, the championship trophy as well. So big Dirk fan. Rafe, do you think the Cubs are all in for the next 2 or 3 years? Then if they can't make it work, they will be sellers. I think they're all in for 2025. I mean, that's what happens when you trade for a guy that's going to be hitting free agency. Kyle Tucker hits free agency after this year. If you don't re-sign him, what are you doing? Much like we just saw with the Yankees go all out and bring in Juan Soto, giving up 5 pieces. Yankee fans will argue that King was a decent piece, but other than that, how much did they really give up? And I get it. You don't want, or you want to take the sting out of losing Juan Soto, but at a certain point, you're giving up 5 long-term pieces of your organization, and for 1 year of a guy. And if the Cubs lose Kyle Tucker here, I would view them the exact same way after losing Juan Soto. How are you going to pivot from that? And you're risking quite a bit for 1 year of a guy. So for me, they have to re-sign Kyle Tucker. That's where it begins and ends. Sure, they're trying to win in 25, but it's more long-term than that when you're giving up long-term pieces in Paredes, Smith, Wisniewski, and others. PJ, welcome back. I'm all in for Bregman at third for the Yankees. About time we hear a Yankees fan in for Bregman. I mean, you miss on Tucker, you miss on Soto. At a certain point, you have to bring in somebody to help with that offense. They need a couple of different at-bats, and just because he's not a left-handed hitter shouldn't preclude them from signing him. I get it, they need to have some left-handed bats because of that ballpark, but they also need to get a really good defensive infield, especially after signing Max Fried, who is really good ground ball pitcher. You need really good defense over there. Bregman is a shortstop playing third base. He's going to play that position very well for you. I think he's going to play well in New York. I think he hasn't reached his ceiling yet, which means he has more in the tank. He's going to be better. And so I think the Yankees should be pushing for Bregman. Sox, Bregman not a $200 million player. He's going to get over $200 million in this market. He's going to get 7 or 8 years at $210 to $240 million, maybe more. He's going to do very well in free agency. Anybody saying that he's going to get less than 200 is lying to themselves. I think the only way he would have done that is if he was absolutely wanting to go back to Houston, signs a 5 or a 6 year deal for, say, $160 to $180 million. I think the market has well moved past that. I think Detroit has more money on the table than $200 million. I think Toronto has more money on the table than $200 million. I think the Phillies would have that much money on the table if they trade Alec Boehm. I think the Red Sox had that much money on the table. I'm curious to see if they still do. And then Houston, of course, never got to that level. How old am I? I am 34, I think. Yeah, I'm 34. Lucas, 41 was special as a German. He's quite an icon, bigger than you'd expect a basketball player to be. Absolutely. Class act all the way. He is the most loyal player I have ever seen in professional sports history as well. 125 of you guys with us. Wow. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you guys say hello in the chat. Tell us where you're coming from, and hit that subscribe button. Really does help us out. But the most loyal player passed up over like $100 million or close to it in salary alone just to stay with the Dallas Mavericks and help them build a roster. Had several opportunities he could have left as far as trade, and he's never requested a trade. So, He's right up there as far as the greatest player, most loyal player ever to any franchise. Jeter, I would imagine, is in that conversation. Kobe to a lesser extent, but he did request a trade at one point. Those are kind of the most loyal players I've ever seen with their team. Tim Duncan comes to mind as well. He was really loyal, but he didn't pass up the money that, say, Dirk Nowitzki did. He did pass up some, but not to the level Dirk did. Ben, Jays could use Bregman too. I'm concerned though because Springer's contract didn't age well. That's probably a holdup. Can't afford another Springer contract. Ben, they can afford anything right now. You look at the salary tables. They basically have Springer's deal and maybe one more year of Gausman and then basically Barrios, and that's it. They have so much incentive to make one of these big time signings right now, and they have so much incentive for them to go out there and add to that roster because they're trying to save their jobs in Toronto's front office. We've talked about this quite a bit. They have money to burn right now. And sure, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to be a free agent. Sure, Bo Bichette's going to be a free agent. Well, here's the important thing. If you don't win this year, you might lose them for nothing in free agency. The long-term answer, the long-term solution for them would be for them to try to trade those guys and try to go through a rebuild phase. But that front office is trying to compete. That's why they have the money to do so, and I expect them to spend it. Now, they're turning out as the bridesmaid in quite a lot of these races. They need to get one of these big-name signings here, like a Bregman. I think would be an impeccable signing for them. Burnes, I think, would be a great signing as well. But for me, for them to... hold on just a second there. Trying to read these comments as quick as I can anyway. For me, the Blue Jays need to get one of those blue chippers that's out on the market. Bregman, I think, would be the best fit for them in free agency right now. They can afford it, though. Where do I think the Red Sox look next? Welcome in, Scott Kobe. Appreciate you for joining us. Jorge, appreciate you. Mark, if you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. But to answer your question, Scott, the Red Sox, I think you're still looking at starting pitching. They're still looking at, third base with Bregman to a lesser extent. But Pivetta seems to be the guy they're targeting at the moment. Bregman still has conversations there. Bullpen is also an area of need. Wilyer Abreu, if something really big comes up, like Kyle Tucker, for instance, he would have been the guy that they would have been willing to trade for at Crochet. They were willing to do something like that as well. They ultimately get Crochet without having to give up some major pieces off of their roster. Great deal for them, but they still have irons in the fire to improve offensively. Tristan Casas has had his name out there in the trade block as well. Rafe, does Kumar Rocker get a nod over Leiter next season, or do they both fit in the rotation? If I had to guess, I think Kumar Rocker probably gets the nod right now over Leiter if there's only one spot in the rotation. But right now, the way things are set up, I'd say both are going to be in the rotation as a six-man rotation. If they sign a Corbin Burnes, then I think they probably shorten it to a five-man. And then Leiter probably is your long man out of the bullpen. But I do think he breaks camp with the big league club. Jorge, what's the chances? Arenado to the Astros. Greetings from Brussels. Wow, okay, another international one. Arenado to the Astros. I'd probably put that around 30-40% right now. The Cardinals are having progress with the Astros. The only reason why I say that is because there's still heavy interest from other teams in there. We don't know where the Yankees are ultimately going to fall with their third base spot. Maybe the Cardinals want to hold on to him and just see if they can drive up interest from teams who miss on Bregman. Say Bohm gets moved and Bregman does sign elsewhere. Now the Phillies have a spot open for him. But Arenado has waived his no-trade protection anyway for 6 teams. The surprise in that group was the Angels. Other than that, it's like teams like the Giants, the Dodgers, the Mets, teams like that. Mark, as an Orioles fan, Mike Elias has upset a lot of us with his reluctance to sign pitchers when given the green light from ownership. The window is open now, and Elias is not adding the finishing touches. Couldn't agree more with you, Mark. That's kind of the issue we've had with the Orioles now for the past a little bit. We've talked about it quite a bit in our last couple of days in our lives if you want to check out the full conversation. But just to kind of recap it for you, Orioles have done a nice job via draft, development, getting young players, position players up to the majors. Their pitchers haven't quite lived up to the prospect hype. For instance, Grayson Rodriguez was thought to be an ace. He's no more than a number 3, number 4 starter at best. They trade for Jack Flaherty. It doesn't work out. Okay, so what? You gave up the prospects. You go out there and trade again for Corbin Burnes. You know at the time he's a free agent at the end of the year. You had to be willing to sign him after the year to, say, a 7-year, $30 million contract. I don't imagine Burnes' contract numbers right now are so high that they've blown those numbers out of the water. Maybe they get to 8 years at $32, $35 million, but that's still within the range that you would have expected him to sign in free agency. So the Orioles, for some reason, are not one of the finalists here right now. At least they are not considered to be one of the finalists. Maybe they're the mystery team. but they are not the finalists currently for Corbin Burnes. They need him more than any other team right now on the free agent market. I mean, they have nothing. They don't have a 1. They don't have a 2. Maybe they go out there and trade for Dylan Cease, but it's repeating the same cycle here. Giving away prospects from your team, short-circuiting the future of your team because you're not willing to pay at the major league level for some starting pitching. Now, sure, they may go out there and sign a Nick Pivetta, a Sean Manaea. That's not as good as Corbin Burnes. I'm sorry. Manaea's a really great piece. I think he's got a really good future and is an up-and-coming pitcher, but you need a number 1 in that staff. Manaea, to me, is a number 2 at best right now, and they need to bring back Corbin Burnes. That's where it begins and ends for me. Lucas, Dirk passed on an estimated $121 million. Yeah, I thought it was over $100 million. The most loyal player ever in professional sports history. Tony, hell no to Bregman and Alonso for the Yankees. I wouldn't say that. Alonso, maybe, but that's only because I think he's going to go back to the Mets. I think Bregman would be a great fit for the Yankees, both defensively and in the clubhouse. Plus, it's not just going to be Bregman or bust. I get the Yankees fans and their issues with the Astros over the years. I get it. But clearly the Yankees front office is comfortable bringing in Yankees players. They were connected to Correa. They were connected now to Kyle Tucker. Now they're connected to Bregman. They brought in Garrett Cole. I mean, let's kind of tone down the undertones here of hatred for the Astros and just realize you need to improve your ball club. He would be a great fit on that ball club as far as a third baseman. You bring in another guy, say a Bellinger, a left-handed hitter at first base. That would be a great offseason for them. They would have helped improve their offense and their pitching staff after losing Juan Soto. Lucas DeGrom, Burnes, Eovaldi, game 1, 2, 3 is just nasty, absolutely. Put them right up there with the best rotations in the sport if they're able to stay healthy. That'd be a great rotation. Scott, I think Arenado would be a great fit in the Red Sox lineup, make them a favorite in the AL East. I wouldn't go quite as far as to say favorite, but I would say they'd be right up there with the favorites. Say the Orioles do end up getting Dylan Cease, if they go that route. Yuck, but if they do, I think they're still right up there. Yankees, if they add a couple of bats, I think are still probably the favorite, but the Red Sox have done a nice job bringing in Crochet. They have some really good young pitchers, and they got some good young talent, but they do need to add a bat. Arenado would be a good one. I think Bregman would be a better one for them to go after. When will Joc sign? Good question, Rafe. I know the rumors around the Rangers right now are very real. I'd imagine the rumors around Atlanta right now are very real as well. I would expect him to sign probably before Christmas. I wouldn't expect it to take much longer. Toronto is another team to keep an eye out for because, again, if they continue to miss on these players, maybe they turn to a guy like Joc Pederson, go on a short-term deal. If things don't work out this year, they could then flip him at the deadline if he signs a 1-year, $15, $16 million deal with the Blue Jays. That's also in the realm of possibility, so welcome in. Got about 140 of you guys with us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Really does help us out. Appreciate you guys joining us from all corners of the globe. Let us know in the chat where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button. Let's see here. Rafe, do you think Framber Valdez gets traded? If so, within the next 3 to 4 days? Heck no. I don't think he gets traded anytime this calendar year, meaning 2024. I think the Astros are going to try to hold on to him and try to get an extension done over the next month. I'm sure they're going to listen on trades and at least get an idea of what his value is worth on the open market until they get that extension done. But if they don't, and say it's January 10th, January 15th, then I think we could open the door to a trade for Framber Valdez. He is their ace on their staff. It's going to take a lot to get him off of that roster. But the reason why they traded Kyle Tucker is because the value was so good on the open market. They got basically double what Tucker was worth for 1 year of his salary, or for 1 year of Tucker, they got double that value in return from the Cubs. I think if they get an offer similar for that for Framber Valdez, and they haven't signed him to an extension, we could see something happen there as well. Pardon me. Sox fan, I think it's more of him thinking he's worth $200 than he wants. I think he's actually worth that right now on the open market. Speaking of Bregman, I think he's going to get that number, especially when you consider the teams that are in his market. If Willy Adames gets 7 for 182, Bregman has a higher ceiling. Bregman's a better player, I think, than Willy Adames, and I think he's going to clear $200 million quite easily. Why are the Red Sox not all in for Teoscar? Because they don't have to be. They have Willie Abreu, they have Roman Anthony, so if they wanted to keep that outfield and keep Abreu and Anthony, they don't necessarily need to spend on Teoscar Hernandez, who is a great player, but isn't necessarily a aircraft carrier type player like an Ohtani. He's a really good power bat and can carry you for a month, but beyond that, I think it's he's a little bit of a streaky hitter. And so I wouldn't fault the Red Sox for deciding to go a little bit cheaper and for younger talent on that roster. I mean, Abreu was a Rookie of the Year candidate. I mean, Roman Anthony is going to be a Rookie of the Year candidate this year. And they have Duran in center. So I really like the way the Red Sox are set up for the future. I still think they need some more pitching. And don't forget the Red Sox got Chapman as well. I like that addition there as well. Ben, Astros players to the Yanks. I don't know. Judge was pretty outspoken about the cheating scandal. Well, they already signed Garrett Cole. They had interest in Kyle Tucker. They have interest in Alex Bregman. I think that ship has sailed. Owen, welcome in. What's good? You're from Canada, Ontario. We got a couple other Ontario watchers with us, so welcome to your brethren. Got about 150 of you guys. Wow, our chat is really blowing up. Thank you guys for joining us. Sox don't need Teoscar. Absolutely, I agree there. Let's go ahead and check in one more time just to see if anything else is happening on the market here. Let's see. The Cubs have trade interest here in one of the Mariners' top starters. Absolutely. We've mentioned that a couple of different times. Still waiting for the rest of the news there on the Jeffrey Springs trade, who is the second player going. Nobody still has that second player in that deal, but we shall see who it is and let you know as soon as we know. But in case you guys are just joining us, the A's have made a trade bringing in Jeffrey Springs, and now we're looking towards Corbin Burnes and Alex Bregman on the free agent market. Corbin Burnes is down to 3 teams. His market is down to the Giants, the Blue Jays, and the Rangers. Giants are considered the favorites there for him, though. So, while I think he's very likely to go to the San Francisco, the mystery team, according to John Heyman, is the Texas Rangers. I think he would have already signed with the Blue Jays right now if he was going to go there. I think they probably have the most money on the table. If he wants to go to the Giants, maybe he's just hoping that offer gets a little bit higher. If he wants to go to this mystery team, maybe that's where he wants to go all along, and that's why he hasn't signed either of those 2 places yet. The Rangers would make sense. They have had interest in his camp, or in Corbin Burnes, for the better part of 3 years, even before they signed Jacob deGrom, and there is a pathway that the Rangers could be able to afford him as well, so don't rule out that possibility. Other news that we're waiting for today is Alex Bregman. His market is really down to about 3 to 5 teams, depending on how you view the Phillies and Astros. But Tigers are in there, Red Sox are in there, Blue Jays are in there for him as well. Phillies, if they move Alec Boehmer in there, and the Astros, they say they're in there, but I don't believe them. I mean, they haven't shown the willingness to spend the money at that level or go to that length of contract that's going to be needed to bring him back. So those are kind of the 2 big pieces we're waiting on right now. Let us know in the chat where you guys think they're going to sign. Let us know where you're watching from. We got quite a few people in our chat, 150 of you guys right now. Be sure to say hello in the chat. Really do enjoy this type of coverage with you guys, having fun with baseball. You're not going to get this type of content anywhere else anymore. MLB Network doesn't do this kind of discourse anymore. They're basically a highlight show in the end of the day, and then they have the, I'm not going to say the clown show, but it's no longer the news information that we were expecting when we first started getting Hot Stove. It's now, the soundboard is taken over. Vasgersian snide comments all the time, and they're not taking it seriously. They don't even go to the winter meetings anymore. I mean, they send the MLB Tonight crew out there, and that's it. So we really appreciate you coming here to the Upside here, where you're going to get that conversation. In the offseason, we're going to cover baseball for you, unlike anybody else, even better than MLB Network. We're going to cover all these insiders. They might have they might be able to get the interviews and that kind of a thing, but it's only a matter of time until we get to that point, I would hope. And we would absolutely love that, don't get me wrong. But we're going to cover every single one of these reports out there. We're going to speculate. We're going to go over trades. We're going to listen to our fans. And we're going to hear from you. I want to know what you guys think your team should do, where you think your team should go next. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Tell us where you're from. Really is a lot of fun discussing these kinds of things with you guys. Owen, what do you think about Vladdy for Wilyer Abreu and Rafi Devers? Never going to happen. Rafi Devers, long-term deal, all that kind of thing. For 1 year, Vlad Guerrero, never going to happen. Abreu, maybe for Vladdy, might have made sense at the start of the offseason if the Blue Jays were willing to move him. But you're not trading Devers and Abreu in that same deal. Jay, welcome in. First time I think I've seen you chat in here, so appreciate you sending your message there. Thank you guys for hitting that like and subscribe. Gained quite a few just in our live today. Ontario here as well. Another Ontario boy. Most of us U.S. fans are extremely disappointed in our front office. Too much defense, not enough offense, and not having Vladdy locked up already is one of their biggest failures. Couldn't agree more. I think they should have tried to get some of these long-term deals done with Vlad Guerrero and Bo Bichette. Those two guys are the face of that franchise right now, and they are 1 year away from free agency. There's really no positive reason for them to be able to re-sign with Toronto, short of them making a signing of Alex Bregman, short of them making a signing of Corbin Burnes. So that's kind of a misstep there. I think an even bigger misstep was a trade they made right now here for Jimenez, trading away Horowitz. Pieces that were going to be there for this tough rebuild that they're going to have to go through if they don't make things work this year. Horowitz was going to be a nice piece for that. Instead, they go defense, and they're going to pay him $20 million a year, essentially to be a defensive second baseman. They need offense there in Toronto, and we'll see where they go. They need to bring in Bregman, though. If they don't, they're going to finish as the bridesmaid once again. Rafe, if DeGrom has another injury-riddled season, do the Rangers look at dumping him next offseason? I don't think he'd be able to be dumped if he has another injury-riddled season. So I don't think they'll be able to offload him at any point. I think he's going to be a Ranger, period, for the next 3 years. Get used to it, Rangers fans. Start cheering for the guy, or just, stop arguing about his injuries. Injuries happen. I get it. People don't like injuries. People want them to be available. It's not like he has a say in whether or not his arm works or not. You might like the guy for being available or not like the guy for being available, but let's hold the guys accountable for what they do on the field rather than what their injury status is. Let's see here. Emmerich, yeah, they need to trade Vladdy. Maybe at the deadline they'll do that, but I don't think they're going to trade him at the moment. Reason being is because they're trying to contend, they're trying to save their jobs, and if they catch lightning in a bottle, bring in Bregman. Say they bring in Santander. They bring in another starter as well. That'd be a great offseason for Toronto, and then they'd win they'd say they win the division and win a playoff series. I think they would save their jobs there in that front office, but there's a lot of irons in the fire for Toronto, but they've continually missed so far this offseason, and I wonder if we're starting to see this become a lot like what we saw in San Francisco the last 5 years under Farhan Zaidi. If it turns out badly, if the moves they make don't work and they're losing at the trade deadline, then I could see them trade Vladdy before they lose him for nothing, just like you say there, Emmerich. What three teams that you think Bregman will sign to? The three teams in there right now are Detroit, Boston, and Toronto. All three teams, I think, have a really good case to sign him. Yankees, I think, are going to enter the chat a little bit more fervently now that they missed on Tucker as well. Phillies and Astros are on the periphery of that as well. JG, welcome back. Astros linked to Arenado. They are. That'd be an interesting move for them because that would mean Paredes moves over to first. That probably removes them from bringing in Christian Walker, but that probably makes the idea of them bringing in Anthony Santander a little bit more viable because they're not having to spend at first base. I think they'd get the Cardinals to pay down some of that Arenado contract. Welcome in St. Vintage. Marte to Boston for Wachowski. I don't think that one would be a great fit for them. They have some really good outfield options already in Boston, and I would rather have Abreu, Duran, and Anthony as my starting outfield rather than go after Marte. Let's see here. Ben, the Jimenez trade was such a head-scratcher. Absolutely it was. Welcome in, Just. I think this is the first time I've seen you chat. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys joining us. The Jimenez trade was a head-scratcher. Blue Jays did Vladdy dirty a while back, making him play another year before arbitration. People don't forget. That's true. That's kind of what happened with Corbin Burnes. Basically, he had his arbitration hearing with the Milwaukee Brewers, didn't like how that went, and basically the writing was on the wall that there was no way in heck they were going to be able to re-sign him after he hit free agency. I don't think they'd been able to re-sign him anyway. I don't think they'd been able to afford him. They trade him to the Orioles. Orioles knew what the price of poker was going to be when they traded for him. So again, that's the big question. Why aren't they willing to do that signing now? They knew what it was going to cost to keep him. Let's see here. Rafe, Royals have been really quiet. Weren't they a playoff team this last season? They have been fairly quiet, but they did make a major addition to their lineup already, bringing in Jonathan India. Remember, they were the second highest spending team in free agency last year. They already made a lot of their moves last year. They've already extended a couple of guys as well. They've already done most of their work this offseason. I imagine they're waiting for more of the later phase of free agency where you can get some more bargains and kind of build out your roster a little bit. They kind of took advantage of the market last year in the same ways. They waited for players to come into their price range, and they did a great job of signing them. So I think that's where the Royals are at right now. Vladdy turned down $340 from Toronto. The dude wants north of $400. Ooh, that's a big number, my friend. I mean, he's a first base, third base guy. I mean, we just saw Juan Soto signed for, $765 over 15. Pete Alonso's going to do well in free agency. I don't think he's going to do nearly that well in free agencies. I think Vlad will do better, but $300 to $400 million, that just sounds rich for a first baseman. I get he's got the impact. He's a better defensive player than Alonso. He can play third base as well, position flexibility and all that. But Vlad Guerrero is a great bat. Maybe the bat alone will be that valuable, but it would be a significant jump in what first basemen have typically been paid in free agency. Think back to Albert Pujols and Prince Fielder, say $225-ish million is kind of where first basemen kind of hope to get to. This would be a clear reset of the first baseman pay scale, where in recent years, those first basemen aren't getting those big long-term deals. Now, granted, none of those guys are Vlad Guerrero Jr. level, but that's still a big pay bump for a first baseman. Let's see. They did lose Singer. Got worse in your opinion? I don't think so. I still think the Royals have a very deep rotation there. They dealt from a position of strength to add to what they really needed. India gives them a lot of speed and a lot of contact ability. One thing the Royals did really well when they made it to the series in 2015 or so is they had pitching, defense, and they had speed. They didn't really focus too much on power. India helps them significantly in an area of getting on base in front of Bobby Witt. They really struggled in that category this year, and so bringing him in I think is going to really help their offense quite a bit. A lot more of the intangibles come into play with India coming in than I think a lot of us realize on the outside. I love the acquisition for the Kansas City Royals. Let's go ahead and update our page here just to see if anything else is happening at the moment. Ha-Seong Kim hasn't signed somewhere yet. No, he has not, Rafe. All right, there's the second player in the deal. Jacob Lopez is the second player going to the A's in that Jeffrey Springs deal. Full deal in the A's communications there. Springs and Lopez to the Rays in exchange for Boyle, Waters, Simpson, and a competitive balance A pick. So Royals kind of do what the Royals do. Trade one of their pieces that doesn't necessarily fit their budget, injuries, etc. And they peddle him for a bunch of minor leaguers here and a good draft pick as well. Love the deal overall. Baseball Trade Value is a site that we're going to use here in just a minute. Broke down the trade here. The deal is accepted by our model. Let's see. Boyle is seen as a bit of a wild card and saying stuff with zero command. Simpson has power but a lot of swing and miss. And then, of course, the A pick is the second most valuable part of the return for Tampa Bay. It gives the Rays 3 out of the first 40 picks in the 24 draft. As for your question there, Rafe, Kim, in case you guys are unsure of who that is, kind of a defensive-minded, glove-first player, plays shortstop, played third base. His bat may come along, but he's seen as more of a glove-first player at the moment. Welcome in, Vanish John. Appreciate you for joining us. I think this is the first time I've seen you chat in here. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Will the Yankees do something today? I do believe they will. I think they're going to try to get Bellinger across the finish line. Gets them a big piece for that organization, gives them a first base option / center field option, gives them some versatility to where then they can address either another outfield bat, bringing in Teoscar Hernandez, in which case then they would probably put Bellinger at first entirely, or bringing in Christian Walker, which would put Bellinger in center field. All of those are possibilities at the moment, but I think Bellinger is probably their next target. I think Bregman is another guy they're going to reach out to as well, since his free agency looks like it's drawing to a close. Surprise, Justin Turner, J.D. Martinez, and Paul Goldschmidt have not been signed. They are good veterans, but I think they're not exactly the first guys that teams are going to call to fill holes. They're older. Goldschmidt's off of a down year. Martinez and Turner are at the back ends of their careers. While they're good bats, I think they can be had, around Christmas or a little bit after. I think Goldschmidt probably would go to San Francisco because I think he's going to get everyday at bats there. But we'll see. Let's see here. JG, Cubs and Marlins negotiating a deal for Luzardo by Bruce Levine. That's not a bad deal. I kind of like that idea because Luzardo was off of a bad year. Bad numbers, of course, injuries, etc. Let's see here. But what would the return be for Miami? Are they willing to give up more prospects? Are the Cubs? Are they looking to get a bat to Miami? That's always a possibility. But Luzardo would probably fit in there as the number 5 in the Cubs rotation. Interesting move if it gets done. Rafe, do you think the Rangers should bring back Jose Urena? Absolutely. He was great for the Rangers last year. Just his ability to come as a swingman out of the bullpen, spot starter, he was really good in that role. And I think he was really good as far as a depth piece for them. When they had a hole in their rotation, he was the guy that they would use. They didn't have to call up somebody from the minors. He got blown up in a few starts, don't get me wrong, but he was an invaluable piece for them. But it'll be curious to see if they give him, say, $2 or $3 million in free agency. Every dollar is valuable to the Rangers right now, especially if they're in there for Corbin Burnes. Maybe they want to save that money. Jose Urena, I don't think is going to have a huge market, but AJ Minter 1 year $4.5 million. Jose Urena 1 year 3, 1 year 2 are all very possible for Texas at this point. Let us know in the chat what you guys think of the moves that we've seen so far this weekend. We saw the move of Kyle Tucker to the Cubs yesterday. Devin Williams goes to the Yankees as well. Let us know what you think of those moves. Tell us in the chat where you're coming from, where you're watching us from. I know we had quite a few international people with us today. A bunch of people from Ontario, some Florida, Venezuela, a bunch of people from Europe, Brussels as well. Appreciate y'all's interactions with us, and hopefully you guys enjoy the content. We try to cover baseball as best we possibly can in the offseason for you guys. It's a lot of fun, and we'll try to keep you guys updated every single rumor as it happens. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We'll be live again later on this evening as well, around 8, 9 o'clock, recapping all the latest from the, after the winter meetings fallout anyway. Juster, let's see. Dodgers should be picking up Tanner Scott soon. Dodgers bullpen is ridiculous. They do need to improve that bullpen. It does need work. Tanner Scott, I think, is their top option now with Devin Williams off the board. I think a trade for Devin Williams would have been great for them. Ultimately, it looks like they weren't willing to give up the pieces the Brewers were really looking for, and so the Yankees were able to snake him. So Tanner Scott, I think, is their next target. If they don't get him, or if there's a better option, say a Ryan Presley that they prefer, I think the bullpen is where they attack next with that Dodgers roster. Welcome in, Craig. Go Cubs. Appreciate you for joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. First time I think I've seen you chat there, Craig. So thank you guys for joining us. Let's go ahead and update our page here. There's the tweet that JG just mentioned to us anyway from Bruce Levine. Cubs and Marlins talking about Jesus Luzardo. They want a controllable young bat back. So that means Bellinger would not be going the other way. It looks like Owen Casey might be the guy that goes there. Remember, Casey was a name that was mentioned in the trade for Tucker as well. Triantos as well is a name that they have interest in. But Casey might be the guy that goes back the other way, if I had to guess. Marlins, it's tough to get a good read on the Marlins right now because, they just gave away Jake Berger, who did have a great second half last year for them. They're not exactly ready to win. They need good performances out of that pitching staff. They're going to trade some pieces away. This is the one piece they're looking to offload right now. It's just tough to judge a future for the Marlins. I'm not sure if this is going to make them better or worse in the long run. We'll see. Most underrated pitchers left on the market. Most underrated for me definitely is going to be Andrew Heaney. The ability that he has to spin it, the movement that he has, the stuff, second to none on the free agent market right now. The command is probably the bigger question. When he has it, he's absolutely unhittable. When he doesn't, he gives up gopher balls. And he's a really good pitcher. I know you look at the ERA last year and you're like, what are you talking about, Michael? He's not that good of a pitcher. Well, look at the way the Rangers had used him in the last 2 years. They trust him in a postseason series where they didn't trust a guy like Dane Dunning, whose numbers were better than him at that point and who had really shown progress at the end of the season. They said, nah, we're good. Dane Dunning, you go ahead and take a seat on the bench. We're ready for October. We're going to go ahead and use Andrew Heaney as our number 3 rather than you, who've been a better option for us all year long, because his stuff plays up in a postseason setting. He can throw a little harder. His movement is a lot better. That's why the Rangers preferred a guy like Josh Spores out of the bullpen over other guys who had lower ERAs during the regular season. So the best pitchers on the market, for me, the most underrated, is going to be Andrew Heaney. I think wherever he goes, I think good things are going to happen for that ball club. I think he's going to be a great signing, something that teams should be looking at. Sure, you got the Corbin Burnes on the top of the market and the Sean Manaeas, but there are still some very good arms out there. Heaney was horrendous with the Yankees, but remember, when he went to the Dodgers, he changed the way he pitches. He learned a lot from the Dodgers, and then he went to Texas, and he was good for Texas the past couple of years as well. So I know Yankees fans probably have a bad taste in their mouth of Heaney, but he was really good with Texas. That stuff, the spin rates, all of those play up right now, and that's what Major League teams want. They want that spin rate. They want stuff. They're not necessarily worried about the back of the baseball card. They're worried about what you can bring them in future years. JG, I think the Astros would trade Framber for Aaron. I guess this is your question. Do you think the Astros would trade Framber for Arenado and prospects? No, I do not. I think Framber's got 1 year left until free agency. I don't think the Cardinals would want to trade for 1 year of Valdez. Arenado, I think, does have interest to the Astros, and I don't think the Astros are going to be giving up a huge package in return for him. I think the Cardinals are going to have to eat a pretty penny of that contract in order to get him. Or the Cardinals are going to have to eat a pretty penny of that contract in order for the Astros to take him. Sorry. Let's see here. Rafe, how many bullpen arms do you think the Rangers add over the next few weeks? I say no less than 3. They're going to add a closer. They're going to add an 8th inning guy. They're going to add a long reliever. And if they add a starting pitcher, one of those starting pitchers that's in there now probably would be flexed to the bullpen. My guess would be Jack Leiter. But I do think they're going to add 3 arms to that bullpen before Christmas. So do not be surprised if we see a run on relievers today and tomorrow, especially after the trade of Devin Williams. I think Tanner Scott could move very quickly now that Williams is off the board. We could see a trade of Ryan Presley as well. Kirby Yates is drawing interest from the Detroit Tigers and Texas Rangers. So we'll see where things go. Red Sox do have interest in John Means. I have heard that one, Rafe. But they're looking to improve their rotation overall. Let's see, where the market goes for Means. I don't think it's a huge market, but he's more of a depth, signing for them. 4th, 5th guy in the rotation. Nowhere near the status he once was with the Orioles. Let's go ahead and update the page one more time here. Head over to MLB Trade Rumors. See if anything is happening there. Nothing there. All right, and I kind of want to wrap up today's show with some trades. I know we're kind of discussing quite a bit about Bellinger in recent days anyway. We've talked quite a bit about the Rangers. Let's kind of focus on the thoughts that we had around Corbin Burnes. Say Corbin Burnes is really down to the Red Sox. Corbin Burnes is down to the Giants, the Blue Jays, and a mystery team. Say the mystery team is Texas for all intents and purposes. What would it look like in order for the Rangers to be able to bring him in? Well, the Rangers have roughly $22 million to spend. If they want to stay below the tax, they're going to have to do something to offload a salary. We talked a lot about Nathaniel Lowe could be the guy out of town. But say a team like the A's or a team that needs some starting pitching that misses on these guys decides to add some pitching. So say the Rangers are in here. Let's do the Orioles. Orioles are a team that absolutely needs to bring in some starting pitching. It ain't going to cost a lot. Let's look at starting pitchers. We're looking at John Gray, value of only 5.5. Say the Rangers go out and spend the money. They bring in Corbin Burnes. You're going to have to offload some money to stay below the tax. You're at $13 million in salary. A value going out after field performances taken into effect, about $6 million. Orioles have tons of prospects and have shown the willingness to trade from those prospects before. So what could it cost? Let's just say something small. Say something like a, 20-year-old minor league pitcher. Boom. 1-for-1 deal. Rangers would probably say yes because it saves them the money. There's the deal right there. Not a big trade, but it does give the Orioles somebody to plug into that rotation. They could, on a best day, be a number 2. I think John Gray ideally is more of a 3 in a rotation, but it does give the Orioles an answer if they lose Corbin Burnes to, say, the Texas Rangers, to a team like the San Francisco Giants. There's one trade that we could do here. Another trade that Ben just brought up is Mitch Keller. His name's been brought up quite a bit over the last couple of days. I don't think he's necessarily available unless it's for a huge impact piece. We're talking about, say, a Kyle Tucker type of a player that's already signed long-term. That's the kind of trade I think would be, that would have to happen there. I think Pittsburgh is probably looking to add more around the edges. And his name is being popped out there a little bit because I think if something big does become available, they want teams to think of them and say, hey, we have a pitcher for you right here. Don't forget about us. I think it's the only reason why they even have him in any rumors right now. So, take that with a grain of salt as well. So I have something. Take this with a grain of salt. I have a source who broke news before to me that has happened to turn out right. He messaged me telling me the Tigers offered Bregman $185 million. I think they probably are a little bit higher at this point, but that does make sense. A.J. Hinch, they do have some money to spend. They've already spent a little bit on Alex Cobb, and there is a need for Bregman there in Detroit, and would not surprise me there as well. Rafe, if Rangers could bring Corbin in, then we back in the World Series, barring injuries ruining us again. I think there's every case the Rangers could be right back in the World Series. Remember the thing with the Giants with Bruce Bochy. I'm not saying it's what he does, but Remember, one year they win the World Series, the next year they're terrible. The next year they win the World Series, the next year they're terrible. The next year they win the World Series, the next year they're terrible. That's kind of how the end or the reign of Bruce Bochy went for the San Francisco Giants. Rangers are hoping for something similar here. Rangers never had a World Series victory until Bruce Bochy got here. They had great performances. A lot of guys had career years. It wasn't just the injuries that caused the Rangers to have a bad season last year. It was a lot of regression. So you're going to have to improve. If you add a guy like Corbin Burnes, that would be definite improvement in your starting staff. I would love that for Texas. Let's see here. Spread out the years so the AAV is low. Absolutely. I think they could do that there in Detroit. Bregman wants to make more than Adames, hence the holdup. Makes some sense. Adames, to me, is a very similar player, but I think Bregman has a better ceiling. And so I think he does break the $200 million threshold, probably over 7 or 8 years. Maybe it turns into an 8-year deal, $210 million, $220 million. But I do think he's going to get over that $200 million number. Welcome back, Morgan. Appreciate you for joining us once again. Do you think Corbin Burnes and Teo or Santander will sign with the Blue Jays? Blue Jays better hope so. I mean, they need to improve. They're looking like a bridesmaid in a lot of these races right now. I think if Burnes was going to go to Toronto, he would have already signed, which tells me he's probably going to go to either A, the mystery team, or B, the favorites for him in the San Francisco Giants. As far as Teoscar Hernandez, I think there's too many teams in his market to where they probably finish as the bridesmaid again. They might be left holding a bag full of money, and the only guy left to take it is Santander. John, any news on Bregman? Not too much today. It sounds like the Tigers, Red Sox, Blue Jays are the definite favorites there, with the Phillies and Astros on the periphery. Yankees haven't necessarily reached out too much yet, at least in the national media. Hasn't reported as much, but I think he'd be a great fit there. Astros haven't made a new offer. They're still at 5 for 150. I thought it was 5 for 156. But in either event, the Astros aren't near the level that Bregman could possibly sign at. Pazu, welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome in. Can you turn up your mic a little bit? I appreciate you and your channel. My mic is actually all the way up at the moment, but I can speak a little louder for you. Smelly Cheese, Bellinger to the Yankees passing. Smelly, that's not true. We do have trolls every now and again in our chat. Bellinger the Yankees are the favorite for him. Let's go ahead and just check and see. Doesn't look like anything has happened from passing, so nice try there, Cheese. Willard, I think Houston will shock baseball because people forgot about the pitching staff will get better. Javier and Garcia are coming back, and if you trade Vanber, you can most definitely improve. They could improve for the long term, sure, but you hurt your 2025 prospects of winning a series, by trading your best starting pitcher. I do like Garcia and I do like Javier, but they are not ones in a rotation. They would need somebody to come in and fill those shoes. Could those guys eventually get to that point? Absolutely. But they're still too young, injury risks, etc., and you're taking away from one of the weakest and thinnest areas on your team right now because they don't have a lot of depth beyond their current starting staff. So, if they traded for Amber, I believe they'd have to get a controllable starter back, and I don't think it would necessarily help them for 2025, but maybe 26, 27, 28. It would help keep that championship window open, or at least the division championship window open a little bit longer. I appreciate you guys joining us. Got 150 of you guys with us in the chat. Be sure to say hello. Let us know where you're chatting from. Check out our video. We had quite a few posted today. Or we're going to have quite a few posted this week anyway that we just did covering the winter meetings. A lot of conversation on the Orioles, Yankees, Rangers, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Giants, Mets, Cardinals, Astros, Cubs. But we'll see, where ultimately these guys ultimately sign. Things I would look out for over the next 24 to 48 hours. Burnes signing somewhere, Bregman signing somewhere, Bellinger getting traded somewhere, and a decision by the Phillies as to what they're going to do this offseason with Alec Boehm, how they're going to shake up their roster. Those are the things I'm looking out for. And then other notes on here is going to be the corner outfield market, what is going to happen with Joc Pederson, Teoscar Hernandez, Anthony Santander, and then the relievers. Those are the next moves I'm keeping an eye out for here. As far as free agency, the next moves I would guess are probably Bregman and Burnes. I think that would unclog a lot of things on the free agency side of things. And then the relief market. I think that market has already started to move with the trade of Devin Williams. I think we could see a couple of moves on the free agent market with Kirby Yates and Tanner Scott before we get to Monday. Any Angels news and rumors? Welcome in, Liberty. Not too many. They are connected to some lower-level free agents, Gleyber Torres among others. But they've done a nice job this offseason adding to that roster in ways that I wasn't expecting them to. I think they're trying to get MLB league average players in there. to at least keep a solid baseline for the younger players coming up. What I mean by that is Ron Washington wants those veterans to set the example for those young guys. He did a really great interview on DLLS podcast anyway for the Texas Rangers, because remember, he used to be the manager for the Rangers, so he has fond memories there. He was nice enough to go on their podcast, and he was basically saying something to the effect of, this past season, their coaches were the leaders on the team. Now he's got the young guys ready to be leaders next year, and he's expecting some growth, and we'll see if they do. So that's kind of where things are at for your Angels. Minor league prospects and Astros player development, and I believe Astros can trade Framber for Red Sox first baseman Tristan in exchange for Framber. I don't think that's enough. I mean, Casas would be a nice piece coming back for Valdez, but again, that's proving my point. Valdez is an ace on your staff, and you're trading for possibly the 15th best first baseman in the game. Maybe he gets better, sure, but in 2025, you're still getting worse. That's my argument there, is why I don't think they're going to try to trade Framber until it becomes clear they're not going to sign him to an extension, and then even then, it's going to take a huge package to get him away from Houston. Rafe, why hasn't Kershaw signed to the Dodgers? Do the Dodgers not want him back, or are multiple teams targeting him? I think he's just waiting to see how things pan out. If Roki Sasaki ultimately signs there, if he wants to retire, I think all those things are still up in the air, and that's going to take time for them to sort out. Do you think Burnes signs this weekend? I do. Just saw a report that Joc and the Rangers are talking. Yes. How old is the report? Well, Evan Grant reported on that yesterday, but they also reported on that during the winter meetings as well. So they are having ongoing discussions. Tyler, welcome in. Appreciate you for joining us. Do I think I already answered that question? Do you think Burnes signs this weekend? I do. Cheese, Yankees need a high leverage lefty. Who could that be? I would say Scott, but he would cost a ton, I'm guessing. I think they would love to add another eighth inning guy. They need a high leverage guy at the back end to handle lefties. I think that'd be a good option there. They're not done adding to that bullpen. Todd, welcome in. The Dodgers should trade Lux for Gorman. Don't think that would happen. I think Gorman's got way too much value for the Cardinals. I think you'd have to include other pieces there as well. Now, as far as the Lux part of that, Lux being a fit on the Dodgers is a little bit dubious at this point. I think Tommy Edman has a lot of overlap now with what Gavin Lux is going to bring. I thought a great trade for them would have been trading Lux in exchange for Devin Williams. Maybe they do the same thing here and trade him to Houston for Ryan Presley. That would be a good trade there. Nando, welcome back. So are the Cubs buyers or sellers? They are absolutely buyers. They are buyers for 2025. They're not looking long-term right now. They are very short-sighted and tunnel vision. They want to win in 2025. That was what the move of Kyle Tucker really signifies here. What do you think the Phillies do? Welcome in, Josh. Appreciate you for joining us. Got 150 people with us right now. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you're new here. But what do I think the Phillies do? I think they're going to shake it up. I still think Dombrowski's not going to sit idly by. I think we could see a Bohm trade and then possibly an addition of Arenado or Bregman. There's lots of irons in the fire. Maybe they make a trade out of that rotation. Maybe Castillo comes into the rotation. There's a possibility of Max Scherzer. That's where things are at with the Philadelphia Phillies. Cubs are such a confused organization. I don't think they're confused this offseason. I think they're confused as to where they're at in their winning cycle, but they've at least chosen a clear direction. You can't fault them for that. I can fault them for losing the Kyle Tucker trade, but at least they went full bore into it, and if they sign him to a long-term deal, hey, it works out. But for me, they took a big risk bringing in Kyle Tucker for only 1 year. Let's hope they sign him to an extension, because for their sakes, they risked a lot. They risked a lot of the future of that team to bring him in. Kershaw told the Dodgers he wanted to get his injuries resolved and a mutual agreement that they will touch bases when he is healthy. He wants to finish in L.A. I've heard the same thing, Ben. That may even be into next year before he gets healthy. So maybe around the trade deadline is when he might actually sign. But like I said, it's going to take a while. Rafe, what does a Justin Verlander contract look like somewhere? I think Verlander is absolutely washed at this point. Here's a comparison. Look at Aaron Rodgers for the New York Jets. That's kind of what Justin Verlander looked like last year for the Houston Astros. Just for comparison, let's compare Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. When Scherzer was healthy, yes, he had games where he gave up the gopher ball 4 in an inning, stuff like that. But every now and again, when I say every now and again, the majority of the time for him, he was probably a 2 or a 3 ERA type of a pitcher. And he was on his game, but he's only going to be healthy for roughly 20 games next year. He's going to probably be blown up in 4 to 5 of those games. You're really paying for, a really good starting pitcher for, say, 15 starts. Verlander, I don't think is a very good pitcher anymore. I don't think he has a good 15 starts in him. I think he's more of a 7 or 8 ERA guy at this point. I think it's more of a name signing. I think he goes back to Houston or somewhere that just needs a name to say, hey, look, we got Justin Verlander. We did something. If they do that, they're not getting the Justin Verlander, the Cy Young version of him. I think he's done. I think he's cooked. I think he needs to retire. But I think there's enough interest in him that teams are going to be willing to pay him $10 to $12 million for what's on the back of the baseball card, and nobody can really fault him for wanting a farewell tour. So I think Verlander. I think if he's not done right now, I think this is absolutely his final year in the league this coming season. But what a career it's been. Alrighty, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Got 150 of you guys with us. We'll be live again around 7, 8 o'clock this evening. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you guys. We'll update our page one more time just to see if anything else is happening at the moment. All right, doesn't look like it there. We'll update MLB trade rumors just to make sure we're not missing anything. Doesn't look like it there. Remember, we're waiting on Burnes, Bregman, the trade market as well for Bellinger on the free agent market with some of the relief pitchers. Those are the things we're looking for next on the market. So, keep your eyes peeled. If there is a big signing, we will come back live immediately here at the Upside. So if Burnes signs here immediately after I log off, we will come back. Remember when Juan Soto signed? We had been live for like an hour and a half before he signed. We said, we'll try to wait as long as we possibly could, and we did. And then 5 seconds, literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds after I log off, and that's when I get the notice on my phone. Ding, Jeff Passan, Juan Soto, 15,765 to the Mets. Let's just say I throw an object very far across the house after I had logged off, but at least it allowed me to at least get right back on, change the title of my video to the Juan Soto signing and all that. If you guys want to check those videos out, those are in our catalog as well. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe, check out some of the videos on our channel. We've covered quite a bit of the transactions that have happened over the MLB winter meetings through the rest of the week here as well. And hopefully now that teams are back at their home sites, that they can get this thing rolling. We saw a couple of trades yesterday. Hopefully we see some more deals today as far as free agent contracts. But again, we're looking at Burnes, Bregman, relievers, Bellinger trade. We're looking at Presley as a trade target, Tanner Scott as well, Christian Walker, Teoscar Hernandez, and those types of moves. Nolan Arenado as well to be moved. But those are the next moves I would expect from the market. And hopefully we get some more activity today. Again, if we go live, we'll post it on our Twitter page or X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Y'all have a great one. We'll see you this afternoon.